Welcome to Videos I Will Regret Making Part 4, where today I decided it would be a smart idea to try to tackle the concept of Bungie, quote, nerfing everything and never buffing, and why this was/appeared to be a trend over Destiny 1's lifespan. I was asked this question recently on who cares where, and this person asked, quote, do you think that Bungie learned their lesson when it comes to nerfing? If you nerf, you have to buff. Practically nothing is better than it was on launch. Everything is worse. So bad that the joke weapons are now on top. End quote. I wasn't a huge fan of how this was worded, but I get what they were trying to say. And always the guy to try to play devil's advocate, I will attempt to do so here. Devil's advocate. All right, before we start pouring salt into the comments section. Also, the person I was talking with was not being rude or anything. We were just having a conversation. At the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the process of getting PvE endgame weapons, really good ones, we had the gold standard loadout, Fatebringer, Black Hammer, and G-Horn. This was a loadout that was even better than it is right now, because right now, all three of these weapons in their year one forms are exotics. We had a full exotic loadout in year one, and these weapons were ridiculously strong, a sentiment I had back in year one, on the verge of them being overpowered, if not them being overpowered. This would have been fine if this was the standard that Bungie wanted to set from the beginning, or at least the standard that I think they wanted to set. Unfortunately, for us, the community, those weapons were in the first and second wave of weapons that we would ever get from endgame PvE, and they were just too strong. The power level in Destiny started too high, and now Bungie needed to start the still going journey to adjust these power levels while not making us angry. This goes for PvP as well, with the exotic hand cannons and Fellwinters paving the way for a very long time. Primary weapon combat in its current state is among the most balanced it has ever been with regards to each weapon archetype shining in the places that they are supposed to shine in. In year one, we were spoiled by two-shotting hand cannons with double the range we have now. We started with something that would ultimately be considered, and probably was, overpowered. Our bar started well above that balanced line, on the strong side of course, but because that's where we started, we thought that was the average. We thought that was balanced. The bar went down to try to balance the Crucible from being dominated by 2 or 3 hand cannons. People have the perspective that year one was normal and everything after that is nerfs, whereas Bungie probably sees it as year one having weapons that were blatantly strong and the current year as being much more balanced. Generally speaking, year one was the year of overpowered weapons. If we went back to the start of Destiny 1 with the knowledge we have now with regards to balance, there's no way in hell those weapons would ever be as strong as they were. Bungie had a vision of what they wanted primary weapon PvP to be like, and some semblance of PvE weapon balance as well. Unfortunately, it took too long to get there, and people were spoiled by insanely strong weapons. Bungie was also slow on making more minor adjustments to weapons overall in year one. By never touching things like G-Horn or the exotic hand cannons, they exacerbated the problem. By enabling people to bring forward these weapons during House of Wolves, they exacerbated the problem. I don't think if you nerf, you must buff always applies either. There isn't an invisible nerf buff scale that needs to remain at 100%. I think Bungie has gotten better at balancing their PvE encounters as well via the removal of a good chunk of major enemies, which indirectly helps the issue as well. People tend to complain that Bungie just sees what's popular and then nerfs it because you. You ever wonder why weapons get popular though? Hard Light has never been popular, probably because it sucks. It's gotten a lot of buffs. And to Bungie, and in my opinion probably even more devs, they don't want people only using one gun. They want people to use all of the guns or as many guns as possible. They want people to have options. Johnny Two Sticks can only play an hour a week, and Bungie doesn't want him getting steamrolled in the Crucible because he doesn't have a god roll palindrome. Yep, came back to that angle. Look, here's a chart. Balance is here. Most of the really popular year one weapons started up here. In reality, they should have been down here. But we thought that up here was actually balanced and that we've just been experiencing nerfs. That makes probably more sense. As a counter-argument, the conversation continued with this person. Quote, I can see the perspective, but hear me out. We have less guns to work with now. Year 1 had Thorn, Last Word, literally any sniper, Fellwinter, Hawkmoon, and maybe even Red Death. Now, we have No Land Beyond, the Wormwood, Icebreaker, and 2 identical hand cannons. I want diversity, but we're not getting it, end quote. I will remind people that at the time when I made my This Meta Sucks video where I talk about all the exotic hand cannons, it was one of my highest rated videos of all time, as much as people might hate that video now. 3 hand cannons, while not identical and very much unique in their own ways, still killed insanely fast, and that's why people use them. Fellwinter's was basically the only shotgun, Red Death was alright, sure, and the any sniper situation was mainly because the high rate of fire ones came with 6 shots instead of 4, something I still kinda wish was a thing. However, you still had people chasing the same archetypes of sniper with maybe the slightest of adjustments on their stats. Everyone wanted a longbow, everyone wanted an LDR, everyone wanted her benevolence, but they were all, to the average player, basically the same weapon. I know that there are specific nuances, but most people don't really know about them. Some people ran around with a Praetus, I know I did, but that's partly because the thing basically had no recoil and came with 6 shots. Now, what we actually have are weapons that all circumvent the special ammo changes that Bungie is trying to impose on people. Not that I think they're the greatest changes, at least for trials. They're tolerable for general PvP, but they're not the best. But I feel like some people think that these are just the best weapons now, but that's not really the case. I think people are using them to circumvent those special ammo changes, not because they are the new best. They are the new best because they circumvent those special ammo changes. Personally, I think Bungie should drop that weapon experiment in Destiny 2. I hope they do the whole getting around ammo limitation weapons. If these weapons were not able to get around these issues, then I think we have a much more balanced primary weapon meta. Check out my video on that discussion in the description. I don't want to get into that in this video. I can also turn this person's sentence against them if I want to. Year 3 had No Land Beyond, Icebreaker, literally any sidearm, Ias Luna, Mida, and maybe even Palindrome. Same number of weapons in my sentence, but the reason we have a problem with them is because people just label the weapons as being boring, bullcrap, or both, not to mention all of the weapons are not as strong as weapons were in Year 1. This isn't to say that getting 2-tapped by a Last Word wasn't bullcrap either. We're also talking about what we have right now. We've had Matador, Party Crasher, Clever Dragon, Last Word, Blind Perdition, Longbow, 1K Stare, and I'm sure some stuff that I'm missing too, whereas for most of Year 1, the things listed were what we had for 10 months with probably the exception of Red Death. Plus, I don't really consider what was posted to really be the diversity that you or I might be looking for. I don't really consider Exotic Hand Cannon Fellwinter's Rocket or Exotic Hand Cannon Longbow Rocket to really be that diverse. But certain weapons are naturally just going to rise to the top no matter what. It happens every single time. We're never really going to have a ton of options. Overwatch pros play the same compositions in every single game that I watch, the same 7 to 9 characters out of over 20. The best will naturally rise to the top, and until something takes them down, they're pretty much going to stay there forever. Usually that something is a baseball bat beating it down the tier list. There are weapons that get to break the mold, break the boundaries with certain perks or stats, and those weapons just get an advantage. Most weapons that have been popular have had something that made them better than everything else. Sometimes it's a perk, like rifled barrel on hand cannons, counterbalance or stability perks on pulses, or just various exotic perks. Sometimes it's the weapon just being really good, like Mida. But the more you get rid of these things, the more homogenized the game becomes. But the more you keep them, the more the stronger weapons stay out front, and for longer too, creating an ecosystem where only weapons that gain some sort of an advantage over other weapons get to stay alive. Fellwinter's had range, exotic hand cannons had kill speeds, sidearms, Icebreaker, and No Land Beyond have ammo. So, yeah, that's my thing on why Bungie was constantly nerfing stuff, or my theory at least. Weapons just started out too strong to begin with. That was the problem, or what I think was the problem. Really, the weapons we had at the beginning got a ton of buffs before the game launched. And then after the game launched, Bungie realized they buffed too much and brought stuff down. Someone is going to mention fusion rifles in the comments at some point, I'm sure. But there was a time where fusion rifles were a very large menace in the Crucible. It just wasn't very long of a time. As usual with these kinds of videos, all I ask is that you try to understand the other side of the coin. You can still be mad, but it helps to see both sides, or what I think is the other side, at least. If you thought my devil's advocate was good, bad, or somewhere in this video, a positive rating is appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.